First contact bathroom protocols. Jake Wilson had been warned that diplomacy with new species would involve cultural misunderstandings. After 6 months on Harmony Station, the United Earth's premier interspecies diplomatic hub, he'd navigated through bizarre dining rituals with the insectoid Vesperi, avoided accidentally proposing marriage to 3 different Centaurian delegates, and learned 14 different ways to bow without offending anyone. But nothing in his diplomatic training had prepared him for being screamed at while using the bathroom. The Aquilarians had arrived on Harmony Station yesterday, the newest species to join the Galactic Concordance. Coming from a desert planet with less than 15% surface water, they were renowned for their conservation technology and striking appearance. Tall, lithe beings with iridescent blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer like water itself. The cosmic irony wasn't lost on Jake. As Earth's junior ambassador to the new arrivals, Jake had spent most of the morning reviewing their cultural briefing. Their society centered around water conservation. Even their language had 17 different words for waste. He'd felt prepared for their first informal meeting scheduled for later that day. Nature, however, had other plans. Jake had ducked into one of the station's universal facilities, restrooms designed with adjustable fixtures to accommodate the various anatomical needs of the station's diverse inhabitants. He'd just finished his business and flushed when the door slid open. Standing in the doorway was an Aquilarian, her large opalescent eyes widening in what Jake would later recognize as horror. She was shorter than most of her kind, just about Jake's height, with delicate facial markings that reminded him of raindrops trailing down a window. "Why are you believed?" she shrieked, her universal translator crackling with the intensity of her voice. Jake froze, pants still being fastened, face flushing crimson. What? This is a bathroom." The Aquilarian stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. Her webbed fingers gestured wildly at the toilet. You disposed of perfectly good hydration material by sending it away. Do humans routinely discard their bodily fluids? Jake took a step back, bumping into the sink. That's not what. He took a deep breath. That's waste. It's supposed to be disposed of. It's not clean. The alien's facial markings darkened, a physiological response Jake didn't yet understand. On my world, nothing containing water is waste. Everything is reclaimed, purified, repurposed. She peered at the toilet with scientific curiosity. You just flush it away. Where does it go? It goes to the station's recycling system, Jake explained, trying to reclaim some dignity. It gets treated and the water is recovered for non-potable uses. Non-potable. The Aquilarian looked scandalized. You categorize water as something not to be consumed. What luxury. Jake realized this conversation needed to happen anywhere but here. Look, Ms. Scientific diplomat Lilith, she said, her attention still focused on the toilet with morbid fascination. I am the Aquilarian specialist in xenobiology and resource management. Well, diplomat Lilith, I'm Jake Wilson, Earth's junior ambassador to your delegation. Perhaps we could continue this discussion somewhere more appropriate. Lilith finally looked back at him, her expression unreadable to human eyes. Yes, I would appreciate a full explanation of human water disposal habits. This is deeply concerning. Jake led her to one of the station's observation lounges, thankfully empty at this hour. Through the massive viewport, the blue-green marble of Proxima Centauri hung suspended against the blackness of space, its oceans glittering in the light of its star. Your habitat world looks so wet, Lilith remarked, her tone somewhere between reverence and accusation. Earth is about 71% covered in water, Jake said, watching her reaction carefully. Most of it is saltwater oceans. Lilith's eyes widened again. And your species evolved with such abundance. No wonder you flush without thought. It's not that we don't value water, Jake countered, feeling strangely defensive of humanity's environmental record. We've had our own water crisis throughout history. Many regions of Earth still struggle with clean water access. Yet you have enough to eliminate bodily fluids without recovery. Lilith pressed. Jake ran a hand through his dark hair, wondering how to explain basic sanitation without causing an interstellar incident. Our biology requires us to expel waste. It contains compounds harmful to our health if retained. The water carries away these harmful substances. Fascinating inefficiency, Lilith murmured. Aquilarians have evolved specialized organs that extract and store every possible water molecule from our food. We excrete only dry waste once per month, and even that is processed for any remaining moisture. Jake tried not to look disturbed. Different evolutionary paths, I suppose. Humans need to urinate several times daily. Several times. Lilith's voice rose again. Your species intentionally expels water multiple times in a single rotation cycle. Several heads turned in their direction from the corridor outside. It's not intentional waste, Jake explained hastily. It's biological necessity. Our kidneys filter our blood, removing toxins and excess materials. This creates urine, which we must expel regularly or face serious health consequences. Lilith made a chiming sound that Jake's translator couldn't process. Her own translator finally rendered it as a thoughtful hum. Your biology is remarkably wasteful by Aquilarian standards, she said finally. But I understand necessity. On Aquil, we say judge not the desert snake for lacking scales of the ocean dweller. Jake smiled, relieved. On Earth, we say don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Shoes? Ah, your foot coverings. Why would I wear yours? Lilith asked, genuinely perplexed. It's just an expression. It means don't judge someone without understanding their experience, Jake explained. Lilith's markings shifted to a lighter pattern. A sensible philosophy, despite your water-wasting ways. She paused, studying him with newfound interest. Tell me, what other biological inefficiencies do humans possess? For scientific purposes, of course. Jake laughed despite himself. Well, we sweat to cool ourselves, which means we lose water through our skin when we're hot. Lilith looked horrified again. You leak water involuntarily. How do you survive as a species? We drink a lot to replace it. The average human needs about 2 to 3 liters of water daily. 2 to 3. Lilith seemed unable to finish the sentence. That amount would sustain an Aquilarian family for a full rotation cycle. Their conversation continued as Jake explained human biology and Earth's water cycle, while Lilith described Aquilarian adaptations and their planet's complex water reclamation systems. Despite the awkward beginning, Jake found himself fascinated by Aquilarian culture, and Lilith seemed equally intrigued by humans. Your species treats water with such casualness, Lilith observed as their impromptu cultural exchange stretched into its second hour. Yet you speak of it with reverence when describing your oceans and rivers. Water shapes our cultures, our religions, our art, Jake explained. We recognize its importance, even if our biology doesn't conserve it as efficiently as yours. Perhaps that is why you developed such extensive external technologies, Lilith suggested. What your biology lacks in efficiency, your civilization compensates for with innovation. Jake considered this. That's an interesting perspective. We had to develop sanitation systems, water purification, irrigation, all because our bodies didn't evolve the internal mechanisms that yours did. Different paths to survival, Lilith said, her markings shifting to a pattern Jake was beginning to associate with thoughtfulness. My people developed internal solutions due to scarcity. Yours developed external solutions despite abundance. As they talked, Jake realized this bizarre bathroom encounter might actually be the perfect start to human-Aquilarian relations. Nothing broke down diplomatic barriers quite like discussing bodily functions. The formal introduction scheduled for later that day would be much less awkward now. Would you be willing to show me more of your water conservation technology? Jake asked as their conversation wound down. Earth could learn from Aquilarian efficiency. Lilith's markings brightened, And perhaps a quill could learn from Earth's external water management systems. Our worlds face different challenges, but sharing solutions benefits all. Jake nodded. That's what the concordance is all about, sharing strengths to overcome different weaknesses. As they left the observation lounge, Jake couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. His first meaningful diplomatic contact with the Aquilarians had begun with being yelled at in a bathroom. It wasn't in any protocol manual, but sometimes the path to understanding between species started in the most unexpected places. The formal reception for the Aquilarian delegation would begin in a few hours. Jake had much to report to his superiors, though perhaps he'd omit some of the more embarrassing details. As strange as first contact bathroom protocols had been, he had a feeling that human-Aquilarian relations were off to a promising, if unorthodox, start. Finding common ground. 3 days after what station personnel had begun calling the bathroom incident, Jake found himself standing outside the Aquilarian section of Harmony Station. The delegation had transformed their assigned quarters into a miniature version of their homeworld. The humidity reduced to nearly zero, the temperature raised to what humans would consider uncomfortably warm, and every surface designed to collect and channel even the smallest droplet of moisture. Lilith met him at the entrance, wearing what appeared to be a close-fitting bodysuit lined with countless microscopic tubes. Environmental conservation garment, she explained, noticing his curious gaze. It collects perspiration and atmospheric moisture for recycling. Impressive, Jake said, genuinely meaning it. Does it work with human biology too? We could adapt one, though you would likely fill it to capacity within hours, Lilith replied with what Jake now recognized as Aquilarian humor, delivered with complete seriousness, but accompanied by a particular pattern of shifting facial markings. Jake laughed. Probably. I appreciate the invitation to tour your facilities. Not many species are so open during initial diplomatic contact. Lilith led him through the entrance, which Jake noticed was a sophisticated airlock designed to prevent moisture escape. After our educational first meeting, it seemed logical to build upon our mutual curiosity. Besides, your reaction to our conservation methods should prove scientifically interesting. The Aquilarian section was unlike anything Jake had experienced. The air felt like a desert at midday, yet somehow didn't cause the discomfort he'd expected. Surfaces that appeared solid would occasionally ripple as moisture was absorbed and channeled through hidden collection systems. Every water molecule that enters our space is tracked, purified, and utilized, Lilith explained, leading him to what appeared to be their communal gathering space. Several other Aquilarians looked up with interest as they entered. Even the moisture in your exhalations is being collected as we speak. Jake found himself consciously aware of his breathing. That's both impressive and slightly unnerving. Chief Engineer Zoltan, Lilith called to an older Aquilarian whose skin had a deeper blue tone. Would you explain our atmospheric moisture collection to Ambassador Wilson? Zoltan approached, studying Jake with undisguised scientific interest. Fascinating species, so much water content. He gestured toward the ceiling, which Jake now noticed was covered in what looked like crystalline formations. These structures create micro-temperature differentials that cause any atmospheric moisture to condense and be drawn into our collection system. Like artificial dew collection, Jake observed. Precisely. Zoltan seemed pleased by Jake's understanding. You're producing approximately 2.3 milliliters of moisture through respiration every minute you stand here. Quite remarkable output. Jake wasn't sure if he should be proud or embarrassed. Happy to contribute to your water reserves, I suppose. The tour continued through their living quarters, research facilities, and finally to what Lilith called their sacred space, a small chamber containing a perfectly clear sphere of water suspended in a gravitational field. The Equil essence, Lilith explained, her voice dropping to a reverential tone. Water from our homeworld. Every Aquilarian delegation carries a sample to remind us of our origins and responsibilities. Jake observed the floating sphere with appropriate respect. It's beautiful. And it was, The water seemed to capture and refract light in ways that made it appear to glow from within. This sample is over 400 years old, Lilith continued, passed from generation to generation, never consumed except in the most dire circumstances or most sacred ceremonies. Water is history, Jake said softly. We have something similar on Earth, ancient seeds preserved for centuries, carrying our botanical heritage. Different form, same principle. Lilith studied him with renewed interest. You understand preservation across generations. This is good. Their tour concluded in what served as the Aquilarian diplomatic office, where Lilith offered Jake a tiny cup containing barely a tablespoon of clear liquid. Water from Aquil, she explained. Offering it to an outsider is our highest gesture of respect and trust. Jake accepted it carefully, understanding the significance. I'm honored. He sipped it slowly, surprised by its mineral richness and slight sweetness. It's unlike any water I've tasted. Our world's essence, Lilith said simply. Now, I believe you offered to show me Earth's water management technologies. Absolutely, Jake replied, though they'll seem primitive compared to yours. Later that day, Jake guided Lilith through Harmony Station's Earth section, showing her the hydroponics gardens where water was cycled through plant systems, the atmospheric regulators that maintained Earth normal humidity, and finally the much-discussed water reclamation facility. This is where it all goes, Jake explained, gesturing to the massive purification system. Nothing is wasted. The station recycles approximately 99.7% of all water used. Lilith examined the system with professional interest. Impressive efficiency for external technology. What happens to the 0.3% that isn't recovered? Mostly lost to atmospheric leakage or bound in compounds that are difficult to break down, Jake admitted. We're always working to improve the recovery rate. Perhaps Aquilarian molecular separation techniques could help, Lilith suggested. We've developed methods to extract water from compounds your systems might consider too complex. Their technical discussion was interrupted by a sudden station-wide alert. The lighting shifted to amber, and the station's AI announced, "Attention all personnel. Environmental regulation malfunction detected in Sector 7. Localized atmospheric pressure fluctuations imminent. Please proceed to designated safety areas." Jake frowned. That's near the central hub. We shoaled. The station shuddered, and the gravity briefly fluctuated. Lilith stumbled, and Jake instinctively reached out to steady her. What's happening? She asked, her markings displaying patterns Jake hadn't seen before. Pressure system malfunction, Jake explained, checking his communication device. The central hub connects all sections of the station. If it's compromised, we could have cascading environmental failures throughout the habitation rings. Another alert sounded, this one more urgent. Attention. Critical failure in Sector 7 environmental controls. Emergency teams responding. All diplomatic personnel please remain in secure locations. Jake's device buzzed with a message from his superior. Wilson, you're with the Aquilarian water specialist, correct? Engineering requests immediate consultation. Their expertise may help stabilize the situation. Jake looked at Lilith. Your water management knowledge might help solve this. Are you willing to assist? Lilith's markings shifted to what Jake now recognized as determination. Of course, water systems are our specialty. They hurried toward the central hub, passing emergency crews moving in the opposite direction. When they arrived at the Environmental Control Center, they found a scene of controlled chaos. Engineers from multiple species worked frantically at control panels while warning indicators flashed across numerous displays. Chief Engineer Marconi, a veteran human engineer with 20 years of station experience, looked up as they entered. Wilson, the Aquilarian expert. Good timing. We've got a cascade failure in the atmospheric moisture regulation system. Pressure differentials are causing micro-ruptures in the water circulation pipes. Lilith stepped forward, immediately grasping the situation. Your systems are trying to compensate by rerouting flow, but that's creating additional pressure points, she observed, studying the displays. You need to equalize gradually, not immediately. Exactly what I said, added a Vesperi engineer, mandibles clicking in agitation. But the system architecture doesn't allow for gradual pressure redistribution across different environmental zones. It doesn't need to, Lilith said, her fingers flying across the interface as Jake provided access credentials. Aquilarian water management systems to deal with extreme pressure differentials constantly. You need to create controlled microfailures to release pressure incrementally. Intentional failures. Marconi looked skeptical. That goes against every emergency protocol we have. Sometimes the only way to prevent catastrophic failure is to allow small, controlled ones, Lilith explained, like releasing steam from a pressure vessel gradually rather than waiting for it to explode. Jake watched with admiration as Lilith worked with the multicultural engineering team, explaining Aquilarian pressure management techniques that had evolved on their water-scarce world. Within 30 minutes, they had implemented a modified version of her solution, and the station's environmental systems began to stabilize. Pressure differentials normalizing, reported a Centaurian technician. Structural integrity restored to acceptable parameters. Marconi wiped sweat from his brow. That was unconventional, but effective. Thank you, Diplomat Lilith. Your water systems are impressively robust, Lilith replied, but designed with abundance assumptions. Sometimes scarcity thinking provides unexpected solutions. As they left the control center, emergency officially resolved. Jake felt a new respect for the Aquilarian approach to resource management. You just saved everyone a lot of trouble, he told Lilith. That kind of thinking is exactly why the concordance exists. Different evolutionary approaches solving common problems. It is curious, Lilith responded, her markings displaying a pattern Jake hadn't seen before, that our species' greatest strength comes from our greatest challenge. Water scarcity forced us to develop technologies and biological adaptations that prove useful in this emergency. And Earth's water abundance led us to develop different but complementary approaches, Jake added. Together, we're stronger than either would be alone. They paused at a viewport, looking out at the stars. The station had returned to normal operations, the brief emergency already fading into routine. I believe, Lilith said thoughtfully, that I owe you an apology for my reaction during our first meeting. I judged your biological functions by Aquilarian standards without understanding human physiology. Jake smiled. And I should apologize for not considering how shocking our casual water use might appear to someone from a water-scarce world. Cultural understanding goes both ways. Perhaps, Lilith suggested, her markings shifting to a lighter pattern, we could develop a cultural exchange program focused on water management. Your world has much to teach about large-scale ecosystem maintenance, while mine has expertise in molecular-level conservation. I think that's an excellent diplomatic initiative, Jake agreed, though perhaps we should establish some bathroom protocol guidelines first, to avoid future misunderstandings. Lilith's markings rippled in what Jake now recognized as Aquilarian laughter. Indeed, though I must admit, as unorthodox as our first contact was, it did bypass many tedious formal diplomatic procedures. Nothing breaks down barriers quite like discussing bodily functions, Jake said with a chuckle. Not exactly what they teach in diplomatic training. As they made plans for future cultural exchanges, Jake reflected on the strange journey of the past few days. From bathroom confrontation to saving the station together, their relationship had evolved rapidly from awkward misunderstanding to genuine respect. Humanity and Aquilarians were indeed remarkably different species. One evolved in water abundance, the other in extreme scarcity. Yet both had developed intelligence, technology, and culture. Both had looked to the stars and sought connection with other sentient beings. And both, despite their differences, had found common ground in the universal challenges of survival and the management of precious resources. Sometimes, Jake thought, the greatest diplomatic breakthroughs began with someone yelling at you in a bathroom. It wasn't the first contact protocol anyone would design, But in its messy, awkward humanity, it had created something genuine, a foundation for understanding that no amount of formal diplomatic procedure could have achieved. And in the vast, often unforgiving expanse of space, genuine understanding between different species was water more precious than any either world could produce.